Do you want to explain what the Elon Jet's account is, Evan?
Yeah, for sure. And like, yeah, oh my gosh. I saw someone tweet earlier, like, how can Twitter be the main character on Twitter every day? But like it is, right? It's just we can't look away from the car crash. But yeah, okay. So the Elon Jet account was an account that had been around for years, I believe. That basically just tweeted publicly available flight data about Elon Musk's private jet. And this is something that like aviation enthusiasts have been doing for years. It's totally legal. It's protected by the First Amendment. There's actually like literally like a court case that says this exact type of thing is protected by the First Amendment. But there was clearly supposedly some kind of incident. Musk has now just like gone on a rampage around this. And to me, it's like actually sort of like poetic in a weird way, like that this is how his like speed run of like content moderation and like so-called free speech absolutism has like ended, is just like getting to this point of like, oh, actually online speech can lead to offline consequences, and like that's why it's worth having like a thorough, robust debate about, all of these things, and they're not maybe quite as simple as the current owner of Twitter thought they were going to be when he
Right. So what's so funny about some of this Elon Jet stuff is that, for one, he does this for a number of celebrities. His coverage of where Taylor Swift's jets, and I think some of the Kardashian jets have come and gone, have led to the slate of stories that we saw some months ago about their environmental impact and whether or not people like, Taylor, who kind of present themselves as, left-leaning and progressive in those areas, were really living as they preached. He is a fan of Elon Musk. And at one point, I believe Elon Musk asked him to take it down and offered him $500 or $5,000. And he asked for, I think, $50,000. And Elon Musk declined and decided to spend $44 billion on Twitter instead, apparently, just to go after this guy. And Elon had tweeted in the past, I believe in free speech so much that I would never ban anyone, even the person who is like putting my private information out there. It's public information, but never mind. And lo and behold, now this person has been permabanned. People who want to share links to Elon Jet's other social media accounts where the publicly available airline information is being disseminated, those are unshareable. You're not allowed to share those links. And then the incident you alluded to was that apparently one of Elon's children was in a car that was followed or tracked in some way. And he used that as the justification for why he shut down the Elon Jet account. Of course, where his car isn't where his plane is. Those are two different things. People have made the comment, if you want your flight information to remain private and not publicly disclosed, fly commercial and not your jet. I mean, this is all coming back to the fact that this is publicly available independent flight data. That's the crux of this problem. But now here comes the red wedding bit. The red wedding bit is that all of these people who have tweeted out tweets that are basically questioning the premise of Elon Musk saying that this is all about his kid being tracked, those are the accounts, the reporters who have had their accounts shut down. And it is so dissonant that the hypocrisy is such that even Barry Weiss, who herself has gotten a lot of criticism for the Twitter files disclosure and whether or not she's the best person to do it because of her own kind of free speech hypocrisy in the past, with her protesting kind of pro-Palestinian professors at Columbia and all of this stuff when she was in college. Whew. Again, this rabbit hole is so deep. Okay. That even she has tweeted criticism of Elon Musk. She says, the old regime at Twitter governed by its own whims and biases, and it sure looks like the new regime has the same problem. I oppose it in both cases, and I think those journalists who are reporting on a story of public importance should be reinstated. Are you surprised by that, Evan?
I am surprised to find myself, for perhaps the first time ever, agreeing with something that Barry Weiss is saying. There's a lot of
Team Barry.
There's a lot of like the worst person just made a great point meme like things happening with all of this stuff. But to me, like, what this all comes down to is like the bigger picture that like in some ways she's not wrong. Like whoever's in control of the platform makes the decisions. And the previous regime, if you want to call it that, we actually have a fair amount of insight into how they were making decisions. And we can disagree with those decisions, but you can sort of see like it's a deliberative process. They have these different policies. It's like kind of bureaucratic. And now it's sort of just like literally I'm imagining like Musk is lying in his bed with his phone being like, ban these people, reinstate these people. I don't like, maybe unban that person. I was drunk and like changed my mind. Or like whatever it is. And like
Twitter polls. He had another set of Twitter polls. Should I reinstate these people?
Right.
And the Twitter poll came back affirmatively, yes, you should unban these people immediately. And he goes, wait, there were too many options in that poll. Let me do another poll. He does another poll and the results are the same.
Yeah. But so it's like, to me, in the end, it's like what we see here is like we can debate like what content moderation rules should be all day. But in the end, as long as we're on like OPP, other people's platforms, we're never going to have like real free expression and rights. And like that's why, you know, I think so many of us are so passionate about fighting for policy that leads us to a world where we can all abandon this hell site and like actually have better places to go. And I think like we're seeing even some of that now, like as part of blocking these quote unquote unsafe links, it seems that Musk has blocked effectively all links to Mastodon from Twitter, right? And so that's like a place where a lot of people were going. And now suddenly Twitter is effectively engaging in a totally legal, but very questionable anti-competitive practice that's making the migration of people who would like to switch from Twitter to another platform more difficult. And that's the type of thing that big tech companies engage in all the time, is making it harder to leave so that you have to kind of stick with the few that we have. And so to me, it's like, this is, you know, it's very in the weeds, and like I'm definitely eating my popcorn watching like just, you know, some of these debates. But like I actually think it's kind of a shining example of like why we need better policy and why we need you know, to get ourselves from a world where we're largely dependent on a tiny handful of platforms to one where we have more power back in the hands of individual internet users and more ability to build audiences without depending on corporate platforms.
So what does the policy landscape look like? You mentioned Mastodon. I haven't personally really taken a look as of yet. I've seen people say that there are flaws, that it doesn't feel quite like Twitter. You know, there's the option of going to another platform. There's the option of, a lot of people hoped what Elon Musk would do is have a more transparent moderation panel that could at least be forthcoming about how these decisions were being made. That doesn't seem to have been the case. In fact, he's disbanded the, what do you call it? There was whatever the name of the kind of internal panel was. Trust and Safety Council. Exactly. And it seems like he's making these decisions based on, does he feel like his children are vulnerable? At least his younger, not trans children are vulnerable, because of course people have hypothesized that part of his antagonism to the trans community in particular coming online after that awful Dave Chappelle embarrassing incident and tweeting about pronouns and such as about him having this reaction. This is all armchair psychology. Nobody can know. To the kind of estrangement from his oldest child or one of his older children. Blah, blah, blah. So, you know, we're not getting the transparency that we thought some people hoped that we might get from Elon Musk taking over at Twitter. It seems like there are some issues with jumping to other platforms because the nature of a lot of these platforms is that they are a singular place where everyone is. And if everyone isn't there, then it's hard to have that kind of division. What are the options that are coming down the pike for us policy-wise that would resolve some of the issues that we're seeing now?
Yeah, for sure. So the first thing I'll say is like no singular policy will magically get us from here to where we need to be, which is like a world where we have many options for decentralized, community-driven social media platforms where we can build an audience and where they all interoperate with each other. But like that's the dream, right? Is like something where we're not dependent on infrastructure controlled by either governments or corporations, but rather where there's a lot more interoperability between different platforms. So imagine social media being more like email, where you can have Gmail because it's the easiest thing to set up, or you can have Proton Mail, which is more privacy protective. But either way, you can like email all your friends and they can email you, and it's easy for you to find each other and all of that, right? And like that, in some ways, that is what Mastodon is and is trying to be. It's a federated social media network. And you can run your own server, or you can join one that already exists. I would actually say it's not nearly as complicated as like some folks want it to be. It's
Really?
pretty
Because
chill.
Evan, you just said
but-
a federated server, and my brain just glitched. I don't.
Well, go back to email. Go back to email. You understand
Okay.
email, right? It's just like email.
Yeah, but
So get yourself an email address.
But social
And-
media accounts are a little bit different than email, right? Email is about me pushing to my list, and what's important is for me to have the list of my own contacts that's centralized. These social media accounts are about random people, many of whom I have no knowledge of, coming across my feed. And I'm a little confused about how to get that kind of feed factor and everything from everybody piling into one space if there is not that kind of digital space in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. And so it is different, but it's like the process is the same. It's like you post content, people share your content, other people find it, and then they follow you. And so it's like the actual mechanics of it are the same. And if you think about the way Twitter works, like, you don't really notice the fact that, I mean, your feed is still like who you follow, unless you've turned on the like, show me lots of random stuff that's not who I follow, right? For the most part, we're seeing stuff that we follow or that people who like boost stuff that we follow. And so Mastodon's kind of similar, but at the same time, on Mastodon, you're totally dependent on whatever server you end up on, unless you're creating your own. And the admins of your server could set rules that you don't like, right? And so that's kind of the shortcoming of it, but it's also the benefit of it, where you can create like exponential numbers of individual communities that can set their own rules and then interoperate with other communities. And so and Mastodon, I think, is going to have real problems with scaling as like more and more people try and check it out. But certainly, like structurally, it's more like what we would want social media to be, or to be structured as. And in that way, that where like rather than having one centralized body set rules that are always going to be controversial and never going to be enforced evenly, you can have smaller communities where you actually can enforce those rules more evenly, because you're not trying to do it for 5 billion people or whatever.
So so that I understand the server system, and I bet a lot of people are also similarly confused and interested, frankly, in Mastodon, but want to have a better understanding of how it works, is the idea that the servers kind of operate as the way that we kind of maybe contemplate of the platform of Twitter or whatever, but they're like parallel Twitters that could all access each other, and that Twitter, as we know it, is the Elon Musk server, but there's others that are moderated by people who might have rules more to our liking, and we can share the stuff that's happening on the other servers. We can still see in our feed if we follow the people that are on other servers, but in our own box, we don't, we play by the rules, so that if the content violates the rules of our own server, it won't come over, we won't see it, or won't be able to be posted on our server.
That's basically right. Yeah. So it's like, and the other thing just to keep in mind is you can create your own server, and then you create all your own rules. You decide what you see and what you don't want to see. And setting that up is sort of similar to like setting up email on your website, right? If you've ever done something like that. So it's a little bit technical, but it's not, like something wildly out of reach for most nonprofit organizations or news organizations, et cetera.
Do you have concerns about the silencing? Like there's this argument that the siloing effect of, what if I don't know what Donald Trump is saying? What if I don't know, and all of the Nazis or ne'er-do-wells or what have you are off on their server doing God knows what? I mean, we've had these other instances where 8chan or, places like that get shut down because there is a feeling that what's going on there is too nefarious. And the issue isn't that they're separate and apart. Even if they're separate and apart, there's still someone somewhere made a public interest gamble to say this is the liability here is too much and we're going to shut it down.
Yeah, I mean, and we've certainly seen that. I mean, there's been, Telegram channels, et cetera, that where, just the worst shit in the world is happening, and where they do get shut down. I mean, I think, again, for me, it's like, and this is where we just see the limits of content moderation. Like, there are structural problems in our society that need to be addressed. And we can chase the worst people on earth all over the internet from one place to another. But until we address those structural inequities and injustices, like we're playing whack-a-mole. And so to me, I hear that concern. But I think the benefit of getting us off of corporate infrastructure, where we're seeing it right now, where like people like you and I have spent a lot of time building audiences on Twitter as a platform where we can reach people and organize and fight for the things that we believe in. and someone can just come along and rip that out from underneath us overnight. And we saw the same with Facebook. The early Facebook was like huge for activist groups in the US. It was like a really powerful platform. People built, audiences of hundreds of thousands there. And then like Facebook changed their algorithm, started wanting to charge you money for reach. And like literally that disappeared overnight. And I think we shouldn't underestimate our ability to adapt and change. But I think we're seeing over and over again that it's unsustainable for social movements that are fighting for justice and liberation to build our movement infrastructure on like somebody else's property. It's like having a cool activist space that you're renting instead of owning. And like you're always worried that like the landlord might get a call from the FBI and kick you out, right?
Yeah, you could own it and they'll still firebomb you. I mean, I'm not trying to be alarmist, but
you're not wrong about that either, right? And I think, and that's where the policy stuff comes into play too, and why it's so important to me to fight against, policies that lead to government being involved in dictating content moderation rules, because that's when they can firebomb you.
Hey YouTube, thanks for watching. Just a reminder that this is a podcast. You can catch an extra premium episode every Monday for $5 a month at patreon.com/badfaithpodcast. That's patreon.com/badfaithpodcast for $5 a month, an extra episode every week. Additionally, please do consider liking this video, subscribing to this channel. It helps us out. It helps independent media beat the algorithm. We appreciate you. And as always, keep the faith.